Welcome to the Hembury Books Podcast. Today we have Sean Alexander, who is the international best-selling author of Sober on a Drunk Planet, Giving Up Alcohol. He's a qualified counsellor specialising in alcohol and drugs, truly life-changing by those who have read his books and put the work in. Sean spends his spare time helping people get sober through the Sober on a Drunk Planet community, playing golf, going to the gym, and enjoying doing all the things he couldn't do when he was hungover. Sean, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's quite nice to actually talk about books generally rather than sobriety, although sobriety is awesome.
Yeah, we're coming at it from a different point of view slightly, but I have a deeply personal interest in your book. But I would love to hear what prompted you to write Sober on a Drunk Planet. Best title, by the way.
Thank you. So I drink and drugs, very much a London thing. I lived in Sydney for a bit as well, did the same thing, spent a lot of time in the casino because in Sydney, that's the only place you can get drunk whenever you want.
Star Casino, huh?
Yeah, and also all the betting shops in the pubs. I mean, for me, I was at the height of my addictions then, and I thought moving to Australia I would be better, but actually it's worse. I don't know how it's legal to put a betting shop in a pub.
It's awful. Yeah, it's awful.
So after years of, I just had a normal upbringing. I live in Wimbledon in London, so I'm very fortunate to live in a lovely area. Mum and Dad have been brilliant. No childhood trauma as such. Probably bullied as a youngster. But no, nothing. I was always a good boy at school, and then just got into my late 20s. I wasn't very good at talking about my emotions, and those things all got up. I was in a job that I didn't enjoy, but sort of societal conditioning, I just assumed I had to deal with it. But when you hate your job every day, that has a real mental, emotional, and even a financial toll at the end. So got sober when I was 31, ended up going to rehab. Came out of rehab, listened to thousands and thousands of hours of audiobooks. That was my nighttime routine. Instead of craving and getting triggered late in the evenings, I would go to bed early and just listen to inspiring people, all through Audible. So then that was my motivation, because I'd lost a lot of brain cells through drinking and drugging, and reading a book at the time wasn't easy because I had a very short concentration span. So actually listening, I'm very much an auditory learner, so understanding that actually Audible was really good. And then through osmosis of just listening to all the various podcasts about audio and podcasts changing your life, I just started putting the things into action, and then got sober mainly through that. But I went to AA for a year, and carried on therapy on and off as and when I've needed it, even 7 years in. Even though I'm a qualified counsellor, everyone still needs to figure stuff out, because it doesn't matter how old you are, you're always going to go through new challenges which might require some more professional help. So the audiobooks were just because I really enjoyed audio. And I thought there wasn't enough male writers at the ages of 31 to 35 at the time when I started writing. And I've got a holistic background, so I'm a strength and conditioning coach, a yoga instructor, qualified counsellor, and then I worked in finance as a financial advisor for 15 years as well. So I just felt like that was a good mix to help people recover without necessarily saying you have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, because modern society there is a lot more choice, and not everyone has to go to AA who hasn't hit rock bottom, because it is very much a scale. The habitual drinker will still benefit from giving up alcohol. It just depends on how much impact it's having on their life.
And now that you are sober and you're on the other side and you can see with clear eyes just how drunk is our planet.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sober on a Drunk Planet is more about awakening to everything, not just alcohol. So there are people that can enjoy alcohol, but ultimately it is just poison. There are no health benefits of alcohol. and the things that it does to your body even after one glass. So I think that is the awakening period when people first read quick lit books, is that they're understanding for the first time that actually it isn't what they've always thought it was, because they've never been in a group or a situation before that might actually talk against alcohol. I genuinely don't believe that now, if it was invented, it would pass many governments because of the death and all the costs. So the things that I see on TV, like I love watching police interceptors over in the UK. It's just fun because all they ever do is arrest drunk and drug people or gangs related to drugs. So 90% of all our police, and then the NHS, our National Health Service, through all the ambulances, late night calls, all the diseases that come from drinking too much alcohol, including obesity, because alcohol is just an empty calorie and people could drink 10 glasses of wine, 10 pints of cider quite easily. And if you're doing that week in, week out, it adds. So all those things, if you took those away, then, I mean, society might be a happier place because people have to deal with their own traumas. Not everyone's had traumas, but there's always a reason why people drink. Because ultimately, if everyone was super comfortable in their own skin and they knew all the information about alcohol, everyone would socialize without it. I mean, that would just seem logical.
I'm a massive fan of your book, and on New Year's Eve last year, I decided that I would quit drinking. And in a sea of books of how to quit drinking, which I'd read some before, you know, often memoirs, like, you know, written by women, and like How to Murder Your Life and things like that. I really loved your book because to me, it was the promise of how to navigate being sober when everyone around you is drunk. And I was really worried about the social aspect. But I'm so happy this year. Like, it's the best decision I've made for myself ever. And what I loved is that you're so honest. You know, you're honest on your Instagram page and you're honest in your book about how low you went and the self-hatred and the bad decisions and all that kind of thing. And then how amazingly positive, you know, it's just that kind of, there are no downsides to what you're about to do. I really loved that. And I wondered, do you get messages from people like me saying you've changed my life?
I do, but it's funny. I try not to take it as a personal thing, but I'm happy for the person that they've got to that point where they picked up the right book for themselves and done the work to get to that point. So I'm always trying to manage my ego, because when I was working in finance, it was sky high and I was a bit of a bellend. So I'm always super conscious. But it's lovely. Like, I've worked in finance in a job I've hated. So when I'm in the sober community, or like when you message me as well, like, it's really heartwarming that someone's read my book and it's started that chain reaction of actually taking action for their own health and wellness, which is brilliant. Like, I genuinely couldn't have ever asked of a better, I don't call it a job because I enjoy what I do. It's not hard work. I just write how I feel. There's no fakery. Part of the thing why I hate social media is because it forces a bit of a fake narrative sometimes. So my next book's about giving social media up.
Is it? When's that coming out?
Well, I say my next book is actually 2 books' time, but there'll be a whole new series that moves on from the Sober on a Drunk Planet books.
Wow. In Australia, we've just, they're passing law to ban social media for kids under 16, and that will come into effect in a year.
Yeah, makes sense. Like, it's in the last 5 years, 10 years, that I've noticed within myself that I find it impossible. Once I'm doom scrolling, I'm just like, where's 20 minutes of my life gone?
Yeah.
And it's things like that. Like, the time you get from giving up alcohol is loads, but then you don't want to shift into a cross addiction of being on your phone.
Totally. In a category like sobriety, it's a big popular category. How do you stand out in such a big category like that? Because your book is often, books I should say, often number one in this category.
I I think my writing is just honest. Like, it's very soulful. It's all me at the end of the day. I think people buy into that. And again, not everyone's going to resonate with it. There's plenty of other good sober books out there. It's just a case of people finding the right one. But I think Sober on a Drunk Planet, in terms of a marketing name, is pretty catchy. So it stands out on that. And I think the covers, I really like design. I like marketing. They're things that I just generally enjoy. So that was always a big thing for me, to make sure that the title was catchy, and that's why I've stuck with the Sober on a Drunk Planet name throughout all the books, because it just makes sense.
When did you get the idea for that?
So I set up Sober Golf Society about 5 years ago, after I tried setting up a golf travel business. I came back, COVID grounded it, and that business went bankrupt, which a lot of travel companies did. And I just realized that actually travel and golf is really boozy. Like, I didn't feel comfortable. So then I set up Sober Golfers. That worked well for a couple of years. I met a guy there who just got clean from alcohol, and his Instagram page was called Sober on a Drunk Planet. And I just thought that sums it up perfectly. And then I just asked whether I could take his Instagram handle, and then from that day onwards, that's where the book name came from.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. What are your other top tips for being successful on Amazon?
Understand data. If you understand data, then
Metadata or data?
Amazon ad data, so all search terms. Because without Amazon ads, realistically, a self-published author doesn't really stand a chance. You've got to put your book in front of the right person at the right time. And sobriety is quite simple in the fact that how to stop drinking, how do I quit alcohol, sober books, all these sort of keywords. They're just relatively easy, because that's what my books try and answer for them.
I've tried Amazon ads. I've done courses. I've paid someone else to run them, and I've never been able to earn more. Well, not really earn more than I spend. Did you teach yourself to have people running your ads?
No, so I taught myself. I've worked in finance for 15 years, so data's not that difficult for me to look at and understand. It is a headache, but initially I lost money at the beginning, as everyone does, because I think there is, when you launch a new book, you have to expect to lose money while you try and search out for all the keywords. The more aggressive you are with it, the better, because you're getting your book out there quicker, and all the algorithms with Amazon means that it will then get boosted up. So it was difficult. I did it for 2.5 years, and now I try and utilize people to do it for me, but I've been through 3 agencies and they've all been terrible. And that's I'm a bit of a control freak, so giving away my entire business, because my business is dependent on Amazon ad results effectively, because you can easily lose, like you said, all your money to Amazon ads. But the agency I'm with at the moment seem to be okay, but again, I just need to be mindful that I don't lose sight of how to dip in and out and check everything, because that is ultimately the business model is centered around Amazon ads.
Okay. So is sort of 80% of your royalties are from Amazon?
I mean, if you include ACX, so Audible as well, is probably 95%. I don't really get much from Draft to Digital or Ingram Spark.
Okay. Do you narrate? Have you narrated all your books yourself?
No, I get a guy who's a lot posher than me and a lot more articulate, but he's brilliant. Like, he's really good. He's done a really good job for the latest book as well. Like, the humour's developed as the books have gone on as well, so it's great. He'll keep doing all my books for me, because he can talk a lot better than I can.
Yeah, terrific. Okay. What was your journey to publication like with your first book? Was it straightforward or challenging?
Relatively straightforward. I just followed a course, and within 2 months I was bestseller.
And you never entertained the idea of being traditionally published?
I didn't even know how to. So I just did this publishing course that was promoting audio books as its main driver. Just did it word for word, and I already had an idea of the book that I wanted to start with. So within 2 months from start to finish, it was crazy.
How many copies did you sell in the first 2 months?
Oh, no idea. I didn't check. But I'm probably up to 100,000 now, and I'm only 2.5 years in.
Congratulations, that's amazing. That's awesome. Wow. Did you get it? Okay, so skip that. You didn't even approach traditional publishers. I assumed you did. In the first year, what were the main ways that you marketed and advertised your book?
Amazon ads. Simple as that.
That was it? Did you do podcasts and stuff?
Not really. I already had a podcast, but I wasn't utilizing them in any sort of marketing strategy. Like, I've only just spoke yesterday to a marketing publisher, because I sort of got to this point through Amazon ads. And that's
wow.
Yeah.
Did you expect it to be this successful?
No, to be honest, I was working as a personal trainer, so I loved doing what I did. I was doing the counselling as well, and I wasn't that bothered about the success of the books. I just wanted to have that there to help people that might resonate with my own words. So to be able to give up the counselling and the strength and conditioning to then focus on the books was stressful, because there's a lot of work in it, but it was also very enjoyable, because there's a lot of things that in a million years I would never imagined that I would be writing books and publishing. So that's then given me the time, because the thing with publishing and the books being sold 24/7, it gives me time to now pursue my golf career, which is what I've always wanted since I was a child. But it's expensive, golf. So I think I need to be a bit more savvy with some other business avenues, because at the end of the day,
Why is golf expensive?
It just is. Equipment's expensive. Golf memberships are expensive. Like, I used to be a member at Moore Park in Sydney, and that was about $3,000 at the time, or maybe more than that. I can't remember. But then when you add in all the equipment that you need and all the travel to tournaments, the cost of tournaments, coaching.
It's about the cost of a week as a coke addict, isn't it?
Yeah, just one addiction for another, I guess.
Well, I mean, golf is a great addiction. I mean, that's amazing to say, like, my books sustain my golfing career. Like, it's amazing and surprising. What about some of the other things that have happened out of your books? Like, can you tell us about the community?
Yeah, so the books were always set up with offering a space for people to come in and share their stories, and I try and run it like I would a therapy session. So it's very much about building trust and helping people talk openly, whether it's about a win in sobriety, whether they want to vent and get something, or just ask experience to the group, because I didn't want the group to be about me. I'm not an influencer. I'm just any other person trying to stay sober, and the group conscious is more powerful than me just saying do this, do that, because ultimately people will do what people want to do, and they need to come up with their own answers.
So is it an in-person group or an online group? So is it like global and stuff, and do people pay like an annual membership?
No, to be honest, I wanted to keep things free, just because every other sober coach or whatever they are, they all charge money, and I'm like, if you bought the book, that's good enough for me. Come into the group, and yeah, at the end of the day, like, it's relatively low key. I think there's a lot of groups that are very sober this, sober that, but I try and keep a balance. I want people to share about their lives outside of just being sober, because sober is a tool, it's not an identity. So for me, the books are great. They were what I wrote at that time, but now that me helping other people in the community, it is a form of marketing as well. But it keeps me sober, so it's very much giving away. Is is more of a soulful thing than trying to charge people for everything all the time.
That's really interesting, because often, people use the book as the lead magnet for the course, or the course as the lead magnet for the books, which is, but that's wonderful that you do it that way. Your books have been translated into foreign languages?
Yeah, so I got it translated into German. And the only reason I translated it into German is because I've done a lot of drinking and drugs in Berlin. So it's just like, I think there's similarities in the culture. And if anything, the feeling I get with Germany is that they're a bit more underground and a lot more stigma in terms of talking about alcoholism. So it was just a punt. I just thought, you know what, it's not going to cost me a great deal of money. And they've done all right. I mean, yeah, it's good. I think it's probably one translation too many, if I'm being honest, in terms of energy, because trying to do German Amazon ads is like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but they seem to be working. So
I can't do Amazon ads in English, so yeah, I take my hat off to you. Why does giving up alcohol often result in supercharging your career?
I mean, I think time is the one thing that none of us can get back. I think when I did the book and I thought about all the time I spent thinking about drinking, actually drinking and being hungover, and as I was approaching my 30s, those hangovers lasted a lot longer. So yeah, it was almost half a year that was involved in alcohol. I mean, if you tally that up over 10 years, there's 5 years of your life that you're going backwards and not forwards. So I think time, and then obviously you get all the physical benefits of giving up alcohol. Like, it's a poison, so your body will then start to regenerate. The liver is a very powerful organ, and then all the clarity you get as well when the alcohol fog lifts. And it's just a combination of everything. And also it sort of feeds into a healthy lifestyle. I think if you give up alcohol, then you naturally tend to become fitter and healthier, and then you become more conscious about what you put in your body. Because even things like overeating sugar now, I get a similar feeling of a hangover. So for me, bad food is just, I'm just as tolerant to it now as I was alcohol. So I'm a lot more conscious as I get older.
That's really interesting. I think the self-confidence that you get is an amazing benefit, and what you avoid is terrible decisions about work or conversations with colleagues while drunk.
Yeah, especially coming into Christmas season, the old Christmas parties. I think the amount of times I should have been sacked and I never did. So yeah, I think work colleagues is the worst one.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, just going back to your title, Sober on a Drunk Planet, when you're not drinking anymore, like, when I watch like movies or White Lotus, it's like alcohol and the plot can go bananas. Like White Lotus, basically everything bad that happens is like they get too wasted and make life-altering, fatal decisions. It's just, and you sort of like, because it's anything goes. Like huh?
Wasn't White Lotus the one with the Australian hotel manager?
Yes. Yeah.
Another Aussie getting too drunk, hey? Who would have thought?
Dear. Okay, Sean, where can people learn more about your books? And I was going to say, what's your favorite social media platform? But you would say none of them.
No, I genuinely hate them. All of them. It's funny to say that, because there is an element of me that I do need a business brain, and I do need to market the books. And I know that the younger generations are all on YouTube and stuff, but I just don't think they're that healthy. Instagram, I try to go on, but again, it's not completely authentic, because I'm sat there thinking, what do I write about? I've got nothing to write about. Give me a book, I can write all day, but give me anything else, I'm terrible. YouTube's good. YouTube's got the podcasts on, but also you can go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for all the podcasts with other guests, which is interesting because you get to hear loads of different stories from other people and how they got sober, and various topics come up in those conversations.
Okay. So just final thing. This episode is actually going to air on the day before New Year's Eve, which is really cool because I was reading your book on New Year's Eve last year and embarking on my no more alcohol life. If you had one piece of advice to someone listening to this today, contemplating not having a drink in 2025, what would you say to them?
I mean, if you've spent your entire life drinking, then the alternative is having all that time to do whatever you want, pursue your dreams. But it's the thing that we always used to get together in the pubs after work, being miserable, talking about all the things that we'd like to achieve with our lives. Removing alcohol has allowed me to achieve more than I could ever have imagined within 7 years, which is insane. So, like, I'm just generally excited for the rest of my life without being a slave to alcohol. So yeah, I mean, I think giving up alcohol for someone who's used it for a long period of time is one of the most transformative things that anyone can do, because there's so many good chain reactions that come off of it, that if everyone gave up alcohol, the world would be a lot happier.
That's an amazing thought to end on. Thanks a lot for your time, Sean.
Thank you very much for having me.